Hey there, it's been a while. This was supposed to be a video about Didophobia, but that's on hold because I realized that the layout of Fazbear in the story doesn't match the one that we know, and I can only handle so many headaches. So instead of that, we're going over a smaller theory that I've been working on in the meantime. Before we start, I want to go ahead and put a disclaimer here. This theory is split into two parts, an A theory and a B theory. I'm completely confident in the A theory, but the B theory is something that I'm less certain of, mostly due to it being more speculation-based. With that in mind, on to the A theory. Before we get too far into new territory, we're going to have to establish a few things first. Notably, we're going to need to have an understanding of Fredbear's Family Diner, starting with a recap of the basics. So, editor's note. I use the unused fast facts from FNaF AR a few different times in this video as evidence. I'm bringing this up because I saw that the Twitter account Technical FNaF actually claims to have heard from an employee saying that these are not canon and should not be used. That said, this statement is somewhat questionable. In the replies, it's followed up with a statement that apparently none of the cut content from FNaF AR should be used, but we know at this point that that's clearly not true. For reference, the unused emails from FNaF AR were even included in an official medium, which was the, I believe, the Ultimate Guide. So with that in mind, I'm going to continue using the fast facts, but I just want to let you, the viewer, know that. Anyway, so back to the video. While we don't know too much about Fredbear's Family Diner, we know that it was the earliest Freddy's location, according to an unused fast fact from FNaF AR that reads, "The first location of the Freddy's franchise was actually Fredbear's Family Diner." We know from FNaF 4 that Fredbear and Spring Bonnie were the animatronics found at this location. Adding on to this, we know that these animatronics were Springlock suits from a variety of sources, such as seeing them in use in FNaF 4, an unused fast fact from FNaF AR, and just Springtrap in general. Additionally, the Stage 01 minigame in FNaF 3 is most likely set in Fredbear's Family Diner, given the appearance of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie and the minigame's name being Stage 01, implying that it's the main stage. This is all material that the community generally accepts, but I have a few more points to add that are somewhat less agreed upon that I covered in my last two videos. Something that is more debated in the community is where Charlie died, with some saying it was at Fredbear's and others saying it was at a Freddy's restaurant. In Pizzeria Simulator, we see an alternate look at Charlie's death that shows us more details than what we originally saw in FNaF 2's Give Cake minigame. In this minigame, we see Charlie's dead body against a wall with posters on it between a trash bag and trash can on her left side and another trash can on her right. If we compare this to Lefty's rare screen in Pizzeria Simulator, we see this exact layout. Posters on the wall, a trash bag and trash can on the left, and another trash can on the right. This sets an intentional link between the alley behind the Freddy's and Pizzeria Simulator and where Charlie died. While these likely aren't literally the same posters, trash bags, and trash cans, it was a deliberate choice to make Lefty's rare screen resemble where Charlie died. Now if we look to Security Breach and Ruin, we see the Freddy's from Pizzeria Simulator again underneath the Pizzaplex, but that's not all. In Ruin, we see a cutout of Freddy that is internally named 70s Freddy Ice Cream. This is relevant for two reasons. One is that we can link this 70s Freddy directly to the Fredbear's posters that we find in Security Breach, as the bear on them is the exact same as 70s Freddy. From there, we would have to ask, why would this even be down here? When we cross-reference these details, the cutout from Fredbear's being near the FNaF 6 pizzeria, and Charlie likely having died outside this establishment, we reach a conclusion. Charlie died outside of Fredbear's Family Diner, a location that was later repurposed by Henry in Pizzeria Simulator, before the Pizzaplex was ultimately built on top of it. With this all having been established, we now have another point to go over, that being the cutout that I just mentioned. Given that it's called 70s Freddy and that the design is the exact same as the Fredbear's Family Diner poster, this raises a question. Well, okay. It raises multiple questions, but the first question we're going to be asking is, what's going on in 1983? As it currently stands, there is a distinct difference between this 70s era of Fredbear's and the one that we see in FNaF 4. While a fairly surface level point would be that we don't see the security puppet present in any variety in FNaF or Fredbear's, some of the biggest differences between the two eras come from the Stage 01 minigame in FNaF 3. Starting with the design of Spring Bonnie, while it isn't 100% consistent between Stage 01 and the poster and security breach, it's mostly just his bow tie, a relatively small detail. That said, when we compare Stage 01 Fredbear to FNaF 4's Fredbear, his brown aesthetic is completely dropped in favor of a distinct purple. On its own, this wouldn't be too much, but combine this detail with the lack of a security puppet and it starts to become more noticeable. So, where am I going with this? Well, I believe that Fredbear's originally closed sometime between the 70s and 1983, with Fredbear's in FNaF 4 being a relaunch of the original location, sometime after Fazbear Entertainment started to grow. That said, that specific detail isn't really relevant to this theory, so if you want more details on that, check out this video for more information. Now that we're all caught up, you may have noticed something with the information that I've given you. Since we already know that the 70s Fredbear's establishment had a Fredbear and a Spring Bonnie suit from the Stage 01 minigame, with them commonly being associated with Henry and William respectively, what's the deal with this 70s Freddy? Well, what if I told you that we've known about this Freddy since the first time we ever heard about Fredbear's Family Diner all the way back in FNaF 2? I understand if you're skeptical, but remember that we've now established that Charlie died outside of Fredbear's Family Diner, not a Freddy's location. Now think back to that Take Cake minigame. There he is. Cakebear, as some fans call him, is 70s Freddy. We know that this is Freddy, and not just Fredbear, as the Ultimate Guide's Retro Arcade outright calls this character Freddy. But this then raises the question, if we assume that Henry was Fredbear, as he was in the Silver Eyes trilogy, and we know that William was Spring Bonnie, who is Freddy? After all, another one of the unused Faz facts from FNaF AR gives us this line. The original animatronics featured spring-lock suits that had to be hand-cranked to allow them to be worn safely by employees. Well, what if I told you that there was a third partner? For sake of conversation, we'll just call him Freddy. Now here's the point where Theory A ends and Theory B begins. Even if you don't agree with Theory B, everything up to the end of Theory A still stands as valid. That said, this is potentially interesting. It's commonly accepted that we play as Michael Afton in Pizzeria Simulator. Don't worry, this isn't something I'm going to be contesting or anything. That said, remember what Henry tells you in the ending?
And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you.
Who is this job intended for, if not us? Until now, we didn't really have any other meaningful candidates. After all, most characters in this franchise are either dead, seemingly irrelevant, or commonly believed to be an alias for Michael Afton. Even if you don't think that characters like Fritz or Mike Schmidt are actually Michael Afton, the lack of details we have on them would effectively make them irrelevant. But, if there was a third partner from back in the Fredbear days, we now have a candidate for who Henry was intending this job for. A candidate who didn't show up. Now, remember how Henry dissolved the company at the end of the game? Well, according to a Faz fact that I brought up earlier, Fredbear's is considered the first Freddy's establishment. The first location of the Freddy's franchise was actually Fredbear's Family Diner. With the company being dissolved, its assets would have to go somewhere. After all, that's exactly what we see in the Steel Wool era of FNaF. So, where better for these assets to go than to the last living of the three original partners that established the franchise? Many believe that the current owner is Mrs. Afton, a character who's never shown up in the story, but if it's Freddy, then the current head of the company is someone that we've known since FNaF 2. A character that we've known just as long as we've known Afton, but that we never realized was there. What better character to be an overarching antagonist in Five Nights at Freddy's than Freddy himself? Hey, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I tried something a bit different here, recording-wise, but I think it'll allow me to make videos faster than one every 2 months. With that in mind, sorry for the lack of uploads. I had 2 plans for videos at the end of last year, but then life happened and they kinda got derailed. Hopefully there will be a bit more consistency from here on out, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the video and have a good one.